Before diving headfirst into this review, it's worth mentioning the colossal impact that the original Resident Evil 2 left in the hearts of many. While it's safe to say that the sequel retained core aspects that were found in Resident Evil 1, most of the newer implementations added quality to the experience. This includes higher stakes like a citywide outbreak, better zombie animations, better voice acting, and an indicator that showed when a character was visibly hurt instead of pausing to find out. As a matter of fact, I don't think we're scratching the surface on the replay value they gave us without failing to mention the ingenious way they handle campaigns with the A and B scenarios. This caused differing events between Leon and Claire that had interchangeable elements called zapping that could affect your second run if you chose to leave items behind or not. Now, Resident Evil 2 has been fully reimagined from the ground up with a new ambitious remake that seeks to revitalize the survival horror genre after Capcom went back to roots with Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. I would say it was very unfortunate that this series did suffer a giant identity crisis after Resident Evil 4 and exhibiting some bad side games in the process. You see, it's heavily debated upon that RE4 changed the series in a pretty divisive way by emphasizing action over horror, and of course this led to the eventual conception of Resident Evil 6 down the pipeline. Now, there's no mistaking that Shinji Mikami took a huge risk to save the franchise from complete stagnation since RE4 scored critical acclaim despite blowback. Going into this, I already saw the massive doubt from the community since this reimagining was not going back to a fixed camera perspective, choosing to focus on modernized over-the-shoulder camera angles that were akin to RE4. I'm pleased to report that Resident Evil 2 Remake was a surprisingly fun experience that proves tense horror can be done with a new over-the-shoulder paint job. It isn't flawless, but it is a good way to start out. Let's focus on the meat of this review now, the gameplay. Resident Evil 2 Remake focuses on pinpoint precision aiming when dealing with knob-gobbling hordes of the undead that will viciously stop at nothing to eat your vocal cords like a good piece of Twizzler. Ammo is scarce as usual, so don't expect to go into this game being armed to the teeth like Rambo, even with the addition of gunpowder, which you can mix and mash to create more of a supply. This is a survival horror game at its finest, creating these panicky situations where you're left down a hallway with 5 bullets only and your only choice is to run or die. Zombies will absolutely wreck your shit, and they do have that spongy, bullet absorbent feel to them that might aggravate you to no end in sight after 8 headshots and a motherfucker just won't stay down after defying all zombie conventions to destroy the brain. Ultimately, I do think enemies were made to be tough for a good reason, because aiming down a hallway to snipe for easy kills just wouldn't be a fun game, so enemies take a surprising number of bullets before they hit the floor, which is truthfully no different from the original experience in some regard. Some enemy tech from the original can still apply to this game, so for example, Lickers being blind, that still applies if you walk slowly. That might be a better alternative instead of just running out into the open like a chicken with your head cut off. You have to think fast, think smart, and act quick. Sometimes a good delimbing for a zombie blowing off the leg is better than fighting them, and the bullet damage is absolutely insane and absolutely gross. You'll see hands, heads, torsos, and arms slowly slide off as you do damage to them in a gruesome display of violence. The gunplay feels so satisfying here, especially when you win a skirmish with low ammo or you manage to outwit enemies whenever possible by boarding up areas in the RPD or evading attacks with grace. I love the fact that this game forces you to stay on your toes, but if there's one thing that's worth criticism, it's the fact that the defense options for taking zombie damage factors a little more against you than it did in the original. You could shrug off more damaging bites in the original RE2 by button mashing, and you could head stomp those pesky cadavers who managed to get a hold of your leg. In this game, you sorta take the hit if you don't have a defensive item properly timed from the front of the character, which is a bit disappointing. I'm not asking for roll guard in Resident Evil 2 or anything, but it does irritate me a little bit when I can't get any defensive payoff with a cheap double lunge that I didn't expect a zombie to do. Zombies vomited on the stairway in the original game, which could be bypassed, but in this they do an MMA takedown that you can't really stop with a knife or grenade. If you're going to utilize this playstyle in the future, it would be cool to defend yourself against stair grabs, leg grabs, and find a way to mash out to minimize the damage against some of the adaptive difficulty bullshit where you just eat shit sometimes. That being said, they do give you some form of armor in the form of a red and blue mix. You can mix red and blue, take that herb, and you will be able to take withstanding damage over time. You can also just mix a green in there and you'll have increased health in the process fully. That is sort of a trade-off before going into a big fight alongside weapon upgrades that also span out to Claire's campaign as well, which did not happen in the original. It was a nice touch of consideration from the developers. The boss battles just felt like an afterthought like they did in the original, I'm not going to lie. In the original game, they were never really that spectacular. The great gameplay just carried you through to not be mad about it. The same applies here. You just shot a giant lumbering enemy until it was dead. In this one, it seems like they make big enemies faster with corridors and platforms tighter than a nun's poontang. This logic specifically comes to light when you first engage Birkin during the crane fight, because there's so much fucking room for trial and error. It only grows until you fight G3 Birkin, which is remarkably fair in my opinion. It's all about random variables about the quality of the bosses. They're either super hard or super basic as they used to be. I also didn't have much of an issue getting around X gon' give it to you. It just seemed like child's play when you figure out how to outmaneuver him with some decent space. It sucks he can't be downed anymore. It sucks he doesn't drop ammo, but he also can't follow you everywhere, so safe zones, in particular zones like the clock tower room, are completely safe. Don't panic too much around this stalker Jason Voorhees like monstrosity who tips his fedora at night. Just relax and try not to get into a situation where it's multiple lickers, zombies, and Mr. X present, otherwise you're in for a world of hurt. The puzzles keep you guessing, highlighting that the new perspective just isn't for show. You need to pay attention to notes and things sprawl and writing on the environment to give you a decent edge with completing things properly, and I really like the new additions of recrafting the RPD, sewers, and labs. If you're used to the original Resident Evil 2 layouts, then prepare to unlearn a lot, since this game changes where many key items are located and key environments as well, and I think that is a good thing to keep it all fresh. The controls feel supremely good. They have hot swap mapping of weapons like Evil Within, and if you get damaged, the EKG will flash on screen to give you more assistance in case you're wondering about your health status. All of these elements combined feels tightly made, even with some lingering criticisms that doesn't make defense or bosses feel perfected. There's some issues about cut content as well, but to be honest, I'm 50-50 about this. My philosophy is that it sucks that the bow gun for Claire and the spiders were cut out of the game entirely. However, I really don't care that much when I heard that the Crow and Super Liquor were not making a return. I really can't nitpick about an enemy I only see twice and a recolored liquor respectively that was green like the Hulk. That's not the hill I'm planning to die on, Chief. If I had to choose a hill I would die on, it would easily be about the lack of a distinctive soundtrack for this remake. That is more of an artistic sound gripe than anything else, but there's so much understated potential with the OST of the new soundtrack. Nothing really stands out because they mostly decided to go for this weird ambient feel, unlike Remake 1, which remixed all of the original score while adding to this bleak reminiscence of the newer soundtracks. That being said, I think the voice acting itself was great, top notch, and grounded with a small layer of cheese on the top. As a nice bonus, if you bought the deluxe edition, then I think you would be as content as me with the option to play with classic themes. So the original OST is not fully gone, it's been integrated into this game, and it's really not bad. It also has classic menu sounds as well, which is a nice touch. The graphics are amazingly pleasant within the RE engine. Everything looks smooth, crisp and clean even on consoles. Even if this full review is all about the base PS4 version, I could tell you now the game offers a ton of options for PC players if you decide to play it on there or play the one-shot demo. It was optimized greatly, and you could tell there's little tweaks and perks like messing with the graphical fidelity or tinkering with the display of textures. My only gripe with the base PS4 version is that there are these weird little janky issues that you see from a distance when it comes to zombies rising up. Sometimes the frame rate works against them and it looks all out of place in motion. This probably only happens on base consoles, but it doesn't happen to any other enemies to my knowledge. I suppose if you want the best experience, I would say PS4 Pro, PC, and Xbox One X might be the route to enjoy for the superior experience. While the things that bothered me were a bit superficial in some areas, and while I praised this game a lot for the positives of tight gameplay that works within this OTS style, there is no denying that the ball will certainly drop with first run and second run scenarios within the story. I think the pacing of this game is great in a lot of ways regarding how it was tailored to be so concise, but I think they dropped the ball on the originality of the A and B scenarios, and this probably was a big fault at Capcom for saying they wanted separated campaigns, yet they threw this feature back in at the last minute. These first run and second run scenarios are inconsistent from a story perspective, especially with no explanation how the tyrant gets cut in half, but he lives in the other campaign without showing that injury. So Mr. X is akin to Wolverine. Does he regenerate? Does he have adamantium, fam? Who knows? Annette Birkin dies twice to the G3 boss in both campaigns, so it makes no sense, and then you pretty much fight similar bosses in the second run anyway without any variation. The thing that made A and B scenarios so unique was the things they changed a lot more when you replayed the game outside of the RPD. You might fight Birkin in a later form with Leon B because in Claire A he was so damaged so much at first, so on and so forth. It's the only thing I would dock a major point and a half over with all the things considered, with all the issues of the game at this point. If life selection is going to be implemented in Remake 3, then our choices really need to matter, not be shoehorned in at the last minute because Capcom didn't know how to implement them properly. I would also say that the fact that Capcom stated that Claire and Leon were going to have more interaction in this game was also a huge misnomer. In conclusion, Resident Evil 2 Remake is a stellar title that stands on its own square and delivers the promises of keeping everything fresh yet familiar to players with a superior control scheme and playstyle that feels like it's not trapped by the limitations of the past. The issues do begin to surface when you realize that this remake could have utilized some unique aspects from the original to make the game perfect like A and B scenarios done right. However, that being said, you will find a lot to offer with Force Survivor, Tofu Survivor, numerous difficulties, 2 campaigns, weapon unlocks, free DLC content that's not really that great, and going for achievements. Resident Evil 2 Remake is a game that raises the bar pretty damn high for remakes. New fans are going to love it, and as an old school fan myself, this was a pretty welcome surprise that Capcom has created. While taking notice of the classic gameplay mechanics, they have a lot more to implement in the future, and hopefully they do this without having any room to create exclusion for things that worked in the past just fine, like all of the cut content that I was mentioning earlier. I would give Resident Evil 2 Remake an 8.5 out of 10, and it is a recommended purchase for your full $60. Alright, this is Renegade Operative signing off. Hopefully you guys really enjoyed my thoughts on Resident Evil 2. Sound off in the comments below, talk amongst yourselves. I will get back to you as soon as I can. Tell me what you thought about the remake. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Do you absolutely just, you know, you're in the middle or whatever? Let me know in the comments below and I will get back to you as soon as possible. I will be working on some stuff look forward to that. Follow me on social media. I want to kind of get a Discord going. Maybe I will at the end of the year. I don't know, but we'll see what happens with my own brand account. Once again, you know, I'm going to be working on a lot of stuff, so look forward to that. Terminator, I might do some Terminator video game stuff. I might do some Matrix stuff. That will be pretty interesting. I don't know if I'm going to play a Resident Evil game again soon, but I do have to finish my Code Veronica live stream, so there's that. Anyway, take care, peace out, have a good day, later.